going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be a continuation of the how-to series, now talking about Arnim Zola, or Zola, which is what most people refer to him as. Zola is an incredibly difficult defender, but he's not entirely unfair. He's also kind of an underrated, sneaky, effective attacker, especially in longer form content where you can get the ramp up on a lot of his disintegration debuffs. So we're going to talk about how to use Zola first, and then we'll move on to how to fight Zola. So, talking about the signature ability first and foremost, he gains the Psychic Shielding tag when he gets awakened. Very nice to have. Striking a sleeping opponent grants Zola an unblockable passive for 4, and I believe it goes up to 12 seconds. This is primarily a defensive thing, although it can be useful on offense to grant you openings. And then this right here is primarily offensive. When Zola's special attacks remove his disintegration debuffs, each debuff deals a final burst of, right now it's almost 400 damage for me. I believe it goes up to like 700 or something along those lines at say 200. You want the dupe for Zola ideally for offense. For defense, does not need to be awakened really at all, but for offense it does really benefit him. So Zola is immune to bleed and poison, and his ability accuracy and combat power rate can only be modified by his own abilities. So no domino, no concussion, no suppression, no energize, so it works inversely as well. He can't have his combat power rate increased either. It cannot be increased or decreased by outside means, only by Zola's means. The opponent's critical penetration from basic attacks is reduced by 80% flat, basically just neutering all critical damage for the most part for characters. Obviously, attack rating is going to increase your critical damage over time because that's what attack rating does, but the critical damage is going to be significantly reduced. So he's just tanky. And then additionally, he can't lose more than 10% of his max health from a single damage source, excluding special 3s. So CGR, Gallon, any sort of burst damage like that is going to be capped against Zola. And then his first medium and first light attack are kinetic pulses that do not make contact. This is just to make him more annoying on defense. I'll show you some champions that will get around this in the how to fight section. So, the pre-fight ability, this is specifically for offense, although you will see it come into play on defense because of just it existing passively. Zola can activate pre-fight abilities to either special 1 lock or special 2 lock his opponent. When Zola finishes a special attack, he inflicts the selected passive for 20 seconds. This is offensive only because you can't select pre-fights on defense. But how this is used on defense is when you're fighting Zola, your special attacks will get a 90% cowardice passive. So your special attacks will do 90% less base damage. So watch out for that. Watch out. It can be very annoying. Getting around that with damage over time effects is definitely the name of the game. So this ESP box, this is the most daunting part of Zola's kit here. You build up these charges every time you strike Zola with anything other than a heavy attack. Once he gets to 20 or above 20, he has a chance to put you to sleep, which is sort of like a stun but not a stun. And if you go to sleep, you can't move. It's basically like you're stunned, and then Zola hits you, and you take a lot of damage. So what you need to do is you need to knock Zola down with heavy attacks to remove these charges. Heavy attacks do not grant the charges, and when the heavy attack knocks Zola down, you remove 10 of them. So I'll show you what that looks like in the defensive showcase. Disintegration Gauntlets, this is heavy attack. You've probably seen the videos of Zola heavy spamming millions of health down with just his heavy attack. The first hit of Zola's heavy inflicts a 0.5% disintegration debuff, dealing around 400 damage over 1 second. I just doubled it because 0.5 seconds, times 2, 1 second. If the opponent was not stunned, inflict 5 additional debuffs. So this is Zola's primary damage source on offense. On defense, you just basically get killed by either chip damage or by getting put to sleep and getting comboed. On offense, this is where the damage comes from. So I'll talk more in detail about it when we get to the offensive rotation. His special attack 1 grants him a 10% energized passive for 60 seconds. This adds up because it lasts for a long time and makes him a lot more annoying on defense because you're baiting more special attacks constantly, and the time in a matchup, whether it's Battlegrounds or Alliance War, starts to tick away. And then the first hit grants Zola I believe that's like a 30 or 40% Fury buff, and it's paused until Zola's next special. So you'll have this Fury buff for the entire time after you throw the special 1 until you throw another special attack, whether that's another special 1, a special 2, which is what you should be throwing for the most part, etc. The special 2 inflicts a 40% disintegration passive on the opponent, dealing a decent bit of direct damage, and each buzzsaw hit consumes one of Zola's personal energizes to inflict an additional 10% disintegration passive, just like the first activation of the special 2. Very nice, very nice. And then the special 3, this is very useful for questing and longer form content. You'll gain a self-repair buff. I'm gonna ignore the armor break because it's not super relevant. It's nice to have, but it's not the main course of the special 3. Gain a self-repair passive, healing 100% of Zola's missing health over 20 seconds. This self-repair is lost if Zola's stunned. For each time this special attack has been used previously in the quest, not in a fight, but in the quest, these effects base durations are tripled, so it only goes up to 3 times the tripling. So I don't know exactly what that number is. So if it's 60 and then 120, I think 120 is the max, either 120 or 180, something around that number. I'm not going to do the math right now, but essentially this regen is incredibly powerful for questing, so it makes him super sustainable in questing content. And Zola's very good in questing content. Those health pools are sort of exactly what he looks for in terms of dealing damage. So now let's go over to Realm of Legends, and then I'll go into Labyrinth of Legends to show off Zola in a longer fight here. So let's grab, yeah, we can just stick with this team that doesn't really affect Zola that much. So the primary rotation for Zola on offense, you want to choose the special 1 lock pre-fight here. That is going to prevent the opponent from using a special 1. It's going to allow you to heavy spam them while they have 1 bar of power after you throw your special 1. So the name of the game here for Zola is ideally you push the opponent to 2 bars of power with your special 1. So you're going to see here that I'm going to go for some full combos, bait some blocked hits, and then I'm going to throw my special 1, and the goal here is to have pushed Winter Soldier to or above the special 2. With my heavy attack, I'm going to parry for the sleep, and now I heavy spam against the wall. If you have Collar Tech, you can do a lot more heavy attacks before Winter Soldier ends up getting up, but without Collar Tech at max, you get to do around 6 or 7. And right there, that is basically all of Winter Soldier's health in one single rotation. With Collar Tech, like I said, the fight would most likely be over with 5 out of 5 Collar Tech. I have 1 point in Collar Tech, but honestly, that's all you really need for the most part, because the recycling of the rotation is very simple. You just either bait another special 2, throw another special 1, either or will re-trigger the special lock, and then you just go back to heavying the opponent against the wall. One thing I do want to make very, very clear is that it's not super easy to use Zola in a lot of matchups. Depending on AI cooperation and special spacing, specifically how far a special 2 pushes you back, you might not be able to get right up against the wall, and if you can't get up against the wall, it's kind of difficult to do what I just did there against Winter Soldier with Zola, because if you're way too far away from the wall, that special lock is going to start ticking down, so you're not going to have a lot of time to capitalize on it. And let's say you do push the opponent to the wall, you've probably given them a lot of power, so you're not going to be able to throw a lot of heavy attacks, and your damage is not going to be as high. So Zola is a very fun attacker, he's a very useful attacker, but you're not going to be able to use him to the same effectiveness in every single matchup just because of what special attacks do with spacing. Now, that being said, a lot of matchups are good for Zola. He's not just going to be neutered by like 70% of the entire game. Most champions with special attacks that don't push you too far back, special 2s specifically, you're going to be able to capitalize on the rotation here. No problem. So we're going to fight Labyrinth of Legends Red Hulk here. The same idea as the Winter Soldier fight. We're going to push Red Hulk to 2 bars of power. Ideally, with my special 1, pushing him over the power threshold. Gonna bait some blocked hits. It's honestly not a bad idea because you build up those ESP charges. One thing I forgot to mention when talking about the kit, when you hit Zola's block, instead of giving him 1 charge, you give him 3. So be very careful with hitting Zola's block. So as you can see, AI cooperation is a very big deal for Zola, and I'm not exactly against the wall, but I'm going to hit Red Hulk's block, and now I'm against the wall, start throwing my heavy attacks. And as you can see, spacing is very important. Like, this is not a perfect setup by any means for Zola here. I'm going to go for a special 2 to just sort of reset everything. And hopefully Red Hulk, there we go, throws the special. So now I can go for a heavy attack into my relic, and now I can start heavy spamming. So as you can see, I'm not going to cut any of that out because that's a very realistic representation of what it can look like to not get perfect AI cooperation. So now I'm going to throw a special 1 here to get the Fury back and also to reset the special lock. Go for another heavy here. Wait the stun duration out. Another thing you have to be very wary of is if Zola's heavy attack is too far away, you're not going to land the disintegrations on the actual hit itself. So be very careful of that. We're going to push him back against the wall here. And then I'm going to reset with my heavy attack. And now we should be able to keep going. So AI cooperation is huge. I'll show off Zola in some shorter fights as well to show what it looks like to use him in content like that. Another special 1 here. Even without the perfect cooperation, we're still taking off, 20 to 30% of Red Hulk's health in each cycle here. Of course, Labyrinth Evade is not the absolute best thing in the world. Go for a special 2 here. Reset everything. This should be almost enough to finish him here, and if not, we'll need one more rotation. Alright, yeah, that should be good. Perfect. So, that wasn't even the best fight in terms of AI cooperation. It was still pretty decent. I think fighting Old Man Logan might be a better representation of how Zola feels in longer fights. So, let's do that right now. Let's go fight Old Man Logan. Special 2s that don't push you far back, especially if you're not fighting bigger opponents, because the bigger opponents sometimes are less willing to throw specials against other bigger opponents. It's just a, like an AI size thing. We're going to push Old Man Logan to his special 2 with my special 1. And if he throws this, I'm in the perfect position to start using my heavy attack and spamming it against the wall. So this is a much more realistic representation of what it looks like to use Zola in longer form content. I only have 1 point in Collar Tech, and with 1 rotation, we take Old Man Logan down to 55% health. Basically, half of his health in a single rotation. That's pretty solid, man. That is pretty solid. And you just go right back to it. The disintegrations also reduce combat power rate, the passive ones specifically. I believe they do, at least they should. I think that's how disintegration works. And this is significantly better than the Red Hulk fight I just did. 1 more special 2 from Old Man Logan, and we're just going to be able to heavy him down. No problem. Even with the heavy spacing not being perfect, it'll auto-correct at some point. And that is a much better representation of how Zola works in longer form content with the heavy spam. 1 minute and 9 seconds, significantly faster. As you can see, AI cooperation is huge. If the AI is not willing to cooperate, if they're throwing specials in an awkward position, sometimes Zola's not going to be the perfect option. But like I showed in the Red Hulk fight, he still can get the job done, chipping away, 20 to 30% of the opponent's health at one time. And in a matchup like this, where the AI is cooperating and the special's not pushing you too far back, you can take off, 7 to 900,000 health in 1 single rotation. So now that we've seen Zola a little bit in longer form content, let me show him off in shorter form content as well, just 1 or 2 fights before I get into how to fight Zola and who are the best options to use. Let's go fight, I don't know, someone like Apocalypse or someone like Sauron. Maybe even Jean Grey, honestly. Yeah, let's go fight Jean Grey. So like I said, let's go fight Jean Grey to show off Zola in a shorter form matchup, a matchup where he does definitely work fairly well. Shorter form content is good for Zola, again, as long as the AI is willing to cooperate and the special attacks are being thrown like that, Zola's going to be perfectly fine for shorter form content. Obviously, he's primarily a defender, but if you need to use him on offense in a pinch, he works. Use this special one to push her over 2 bars of power. Going for a little heavy delay here. And now we just spam heavies in the corner. Ideally before that force field comes back. And before you know it, there's Jean Grey just completely annihilated by Zola in like 30 seconds. Yeah, 33 seconds for that fight. So Zola, you know, he can pull it off on offense, man. He really can. That's rank 4 versus rank 4. And Jean Grey's a very tough defender. So Zola can definitely pull it off on offense. It's just you need to know the specific matchups and the spacing of special attacks before going in and using Zola for a situation. So now that I've shown in 17 minutes here how to use Zola, let's talk about how to fight Zola. So I'm going to bring in some options here, some characters, some that are direct counters, some that are not necessarily as direct of a counter, but still work. So we can keep Okoye, she's actually pretty solid. And then let's grab Photon. So, fighting Zola, it can be tricky, but I do think Zola is fair. So one thing that's very important when fighting Zola is your ability to reparry. Now, Zola's first medium and first light attack are non-contact, so if you can parry projectiles, you don't have to worry about reparrying. You can just parry, heavy, knock Zola down. It's a lot easier to fight him that way. Additionally, if you have a heavy stun, like a Thanos or a Gladiator or a Wasp, that also makes Zola significantly easier because it's built into your basic combo. You just stun him, and there's no problem. Now, on stun immune nodes, Zola becomes a lot trickier because the knockdown is a lot less available to you, but there are certain champions that can heavy counter him. So I'm going to start off with one of the best options overall for Zola, and that's Deathless Thanos. So like I said, let's jump right in here with one of the best options for Arnim Zola, which is Deathless Thanos. Deathless Thanos and also Gladiator have the heavy stun built into their base kit, and that allows them to do stuff like this, where Zola just never really gains a significant amount of his charges. I can even hit Zola's block, and it's not a huge deal. Go for another heavy attack here. I'm going to bait Zola's special one. I'm going to block the final 2 hits of it to build up more of my necrotic charges. I'm going to do the same thing again here, and if Zola's not willing to throw a special one, I will sort of make him throw a special one. I'm going to throw a heavy attack here. Throw my special 2. And Zola is basically going to die from this next combo here. Into my relic, don't even need it. And yeah, that's Thanos handling Zola in 49 seconds. Very good for Zola, one of the best options for sure. Now, let's look at some other options that definitely work, but it requires a lot more finesse and a lot more skill. So like I mentioned, if you can reparry well, Zola is going to be a lot easier to fight on stun nodes specifically, on areas of the game where you can stun Zola. It's going to be a lot easier to fight him. I have already made a video of characters who can heavy counter Zola specifically, so if you're looking for a reference, go watch that video. But we're going to use Okoye here. Now, I know Okoye has the capability to heavy counter Zola, but it's not consistent. So what I do is I'll build up some dexes here, and then I will go for a reparry. Now, sometimes Zola will go for a medium-medium combo, sometimes he'll go for a medium-light combo, or a light-light combo. All you need to do is continue reparrying. So, it can be a little tricky, especially if Zola is throwing heavy attacks like that, but eventually, he will go for a combo that allows you to parry one of his basic attacks. Now, it can be very annoying, as it clearly is being shown here, if Zola does not want to throw a heavy attack or a basic attack. It can be very annoying, but as you can see, there's 2 heavies back to back, and Zola's back down to 0 charges. So the only thing about fighting Zola and doing the reparry method is sometimes, not every time, but sometimes it'll take longer because there's just not as many openings being granted to you. But as you can see, we are handling Zola just fine here. Go for another combo here, and go for a relic. If I wanted to, I would go for my relic into a heavy attack, but we don't even need to do that. Okoye handles that just fine. That was on the longer side for sure. He was being very uncooperative at the beginning of that fight when I was trying to get a reparry off. But Okoye finished that fight with 99% health and just over a minute and 10 seconds there. So obviously when you fight Zola for the most part, some matchups are going to be a little longer. You know, Zola is not the type of champion that will be easily nuked. There are some characters that can do it, like Tigra, but for the most part, you're not going to have matchups against Zola that are going to go super duper fast, depending on the meta, depending on situations, obviously. But let's go fight Zola with another champion that is very good for him, and that's Photon. So Photon, along with a lot of other characters like Bastion, Cull Obsidian, I believe Quicksilver had a certain bit of momentum, but he's not necessarily great for Zola. There are characters in the game that can parry non-contact attacks. Photon and Bastion come to mind specifically. Superior Iron Man with his instinct buff, Carolina Dean. So as you can see, I'm parrying Zola's medium, no problem. No problem at all. So I can go for full normal combos here, and then when I need to knock Zola down, I just parry and heavy, and that is it. Now, the Special 1 decks can be a little tricky. As you just saw there, I even mess it up from time to time. It is sort of awkward timing because you do get pushed back quite a bit. But it is 1 dash back and then 1 dex. So you want to be out of the way of that first beam to where it's not going to be in your range. Because if you're close enough, you will get hit by the first beam. If you're far enough away, you will not. So, just a pro tip there for fighting Zola. Alright, now we are ramped up. Start throwing my heavy attacks. You might take a little bit of chip damage with Photon against Zola because you end up going for a couple of special 2 baits. But as you can see, she's handling this fight pretty well. Need to go for a heavy attack at some point here. Probably go for 2 heavies, honestly, because he's at 9 and now he's back to 0. Throw my special 2. The special attack damage itself is not a lot, but just throwing the special attack really gives you some spacing and allows you to sort of reset a little bit. Bait the special 1. That's on me for not dexing that properly. Yeah, sometimes you get clipped and you sort of block the first hit and want to dex the rest of it, but you end up not being able to do that. Throw my special 1 here to get the trauma going. As you can see, this is a rank 4 Zola with a rank 3 Photon. It's taking quite a while. Zola is not going to be quickly killed by a lot of characters. Unfortunately, Zola has to take a bit of time to get down, and it's not going to be pretty every time. You know, it's not going to be the absolute nicest takedown in the world. Sometimes it's going to be kind of a bit. Like, that was 2 minutes. That wouldn't even be finishing in a Battlegrounds fight, and of course, this is an underranked Photon. But that just goes to show Zola takes a while. Zola is not a character that you're going to be nuking down with for the most part, with most champions. There are some champions that are very, very rare exceptions, but Zola, he'll take like 50, 60, 70 seconds on average, and that's a pretty good Zola fight. If you're getting him down in like 50 seconds, 60 seconds, that's around what it should be looking like if you're proficient at fighting Zola. So, now I'm going to show off another great option. One of my favorite options for Zola, actually. Superior Iron Man. Superior Iron Man is fantastic for Zola because not only does he have some regen, which can mitigate a lot of the chip damage from that disintegration, but he also has an instinct buff on his heavy attack, and that allows him to parry non-contact attacks. So the only thing you really need to do with Superior Iron Man is you need to get off 1 parry at the start. Whether that's a reparry or, you know, whatever it is. 1 parry, and now, for the rest of the fight, as long as I'm maintaining the buff, I can parry his non-contact attacks, no problem. You know, I'm even hitting his block, it doesn't even matter. Go for a medium, parry, knock him down. Bait the special one here. Medium. I was going to go for a little auto block thing there, but I ended up not going for it. Go for another heavy attack here. Going to go for a medium again. Throw the special 2. And as you can see, that disintegration, it's definitely chipping me down, but the regen that I have is mitigating a lot of the damage. Go for another heavy attack here. Knock him down. Now I have 5 regens. Go for another medium. Nice auto block save there. Bait this special 1. Medium into a special 2. And a full combo with this armor break is probably going to be enough to take him down. Okay, one more combo. But as you can see, Superior Iron Man, he stayed alive, and that was only just a little bit slower than Okoye with an uncooperative AI. So Superior Iron Man, very good for Zola. Very solid option. You know, just over a minute and a decent amount of health left. And of course, if you're in a longer fight, that regen is going to keep you up consistently. I very much appreciate and like Superior Iron Man for Zola quite a bit. So I think the last thing I want to show you is heavy countering Zola specifically. So let's grab SheHulk here, my girl, my beauty, my queen. SheHulk is pretty good for Zola. I haven't used her too many times in like a battleground situation, but the times I have used her, she's actually been solid because SheHulk can specifically heavy counter Arnim Zola. She can specifically heavy counter him. So what that looks like is going to go into a match here. I'm going to hit him a couple of times, hopefully get some Furies on the way to baiting a special 2. But if not, I just heavy attack. I knock him down, and I don't really have to worry about the ESP charges all that much. Now, another great benefit for SheHulk is she has the taunt from the Fury, and that is going to make Zola way more likely to throw special 1s, even though I only have 1 right now. It's going to make him way more likely to throw those special 1s. Knock him down with another heavy attack. And you kind of get into this rhythm. You kind of get into this rhythm of combo special 1, bait special 1, bait heavy consistently. Obviously, you can use the relic as well to get the knockdowns if you don't want to bait a heavy attack, which I highly recommend. But this is sort of the rhythm that you get in with SheHulk against Zola specifically. This also works with Deathless SheHulk. They have same animations, so this is the same exact sort of system with Deathless SheHulk. Totally on me for not dexing the special properly. Go for another heavy attack knockdown. And we are 50% of the way through here. Probably at like just over a minute now. But the Furies are ramping up and the basic combos are getting kind of dangerous for Zola. Gonna go for a relic here. Knock him down with a heavy attack. 37k crit. You love to see it. And while SheHulk might not be the fastest option for Zola, she is pretty damn solid. Pretty damn solid. That was 139. Again, not the absolute fastest, but if you ever find yourself needing to fight Zola in like story content or content where the health pools are a lot higher, I think SheHulk will be a significantly better option than a lot of other characters dealing with Zola, just because of how her damage ramps up. And the same goes for Deathless SheHulk as well, because they sort of are the, two sides of the same coin. So that is all I have today for this video. Long video today, 30 minutes of just straight recording. Hopefully you guys stuck around for the video. Hopefully you understand a little bit more of how to fight Arnim Zola. If this video was helpful for you, please do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. Also hit that like button. Shows me that you're showing support, and it shows the YouTube algorithm that I am making content people are enjoying. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.